How's everybody doing today? It got so quiet, I thought we were here to be festive and celebratory. For those who haven't met me, my name is Benny Roberts. I'm a St. Paul kid. I attended St. Paul Public Schools. I utilize St. Paul Parks and Recs and those services. I'm also a descendant of the historic Rondo neighborhood. And I'm a third generation descendant of Rondo, but also a recipient of Hallie Q Community Center services. I sit here before you humbly and excitedly as the new executive director of Hallie Q. Well, thank you. It feels very surreal to even think that I would be leading a place that was so formative to me and impactful to my family. A building where I met my wife at, a building where I learned how to become a leader at, and a building where I was affirmed as an artist. And I don't know what it is about me. I'm partially robotic or something that's making the microphones hot, but I'm so grateful to stand before you all today. For those who haven't heard of Hallie Q. Community Center, it is a 95-year-old social service organization founded in 1929. The work was actually happening a couple decades before, but it formally became an organization in 1929. During the time of tumultuous segregation and incidents, even up here in Minnesota and even in our beautiful city of St. Paul, the organization was founded within the community through partnership with churches and concerned community members to make sure that there was a safe place for families who needed services to be seen. And that legacy is continued today. We have found ourselves to be what is called the lighthouse of our community, serving families that are maybe struggling to find their basic needs. Through our food shelf program, through our basic needs closet where families can come and get diapers, hygienic products, clothes. The organization also existed to serve our aging adults and our babies, some of the most vulnerable in our community. And so our legacy 95 years later is still true today. We have many families walking around, citizens walking around that were once children in our daycare, and now they're in their 80s and their 90s. This place has seen the full life cycle of our community and has still been a valuable resource to it. So I'm excited to be here for you today. I'm excited to listen to the reading that Mr. Barr has written, and also for you guys to find a fun way to support our organization through the purchase of these books as well. The proceeds will go support our organization directly in our food shelf and our basic needs program. Right now it's Christmas time, and as we're all in the spirit of giving, there's a lot of families that look at Christmas with a lot of uncertainty. Not sure how they're going to make sure they can close the gap so their kids can have the same moments that their classmates have. So the proceeds of those things will really help support our organization moving forward. It's also a really big gift for me to be in this room in SPNN. It's been formative within my own family. My sister, cousins, and other family members have gone through the SPNN programs, and we're in the Kwame McDonald studio, who was a personal mentor of mine. Kwame mentored me since I was in elementary school and stayed in contact with me all the way through 2011 when he passed away. So I am just really on top of the moon, over the moon, to be in your presence today for all these significant ways. And so thank you for being here today. I know you didn't come here to hear me speak. You came here to hear Roger Barr read his incredible writing. And so I'm going to get out of the way, and I'm going to introduce him in the way he deserves it through his bio. So Roger Barr is the author of 11 published books. The newest book, A Murder on the Hill, The Secret Life and Mysterious Death of Ruth Munson, was published in 2024 by the Minnesota Historic Society Press. and has been nominated for a Minnesota Book Award already. He is the author of the novel The Treasure Hunt, 2 collections of Bartholomew Christmas stories, an award-winning play, 35 short stories, and 7 nonfiction books of subjects including the Vietnam War, Richard Nixon, I am not a crook, Malcolm X, and American Cities. In 2021, his story, Puzzle Pieces, received the Hal Prize for short stories, and he lives in the amazing city that many of us call home in St. Paul. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Roger Barr.
Well, good afternoon. Merry Christmas, everyone. Thank you for coming. Thank you to Hallie Q Brown for sponsoring today's reading. Thank you, SPNN, for hosting us and video recording this event to be broadcast on their platforms in the month of December. Now, before we begin, although most of you know this, I want to summarize the history of this series of Bartholomew family Christmas stories. In 1997, the Villager newspaper published what I thought was a one-off short story called, ironically, The Last Christmas, about a very special nativity scene and how it influenced the relationship between a terminally ill father and his son. In 1999, the Villager published a sequel inaugurating an annual tradition. In 2020, the series moved to the St. Paul Pioneer Press. The story you are about to hear is the 27th annual story in this series. And the story you're going to hear is scheduled to be published in the Pioneer Press in their electronic edition on December 21st and in its print edition on Sunday, December 22nd. In addition, this series has been gathered into 2 books that you are probably familiar with. One with the first 13 stories is Getting Ready for Christmas and Other Stories. The next 9 stories were published in The Christmas Promise. We have a few copies of both of those books that are available for sale today. They're excellent Christmas gifts for your Aunt Clara when you can never decide what to get her. Let's see, over the years, this series has explored the meaning of Christmas from a religious and secular perspective. The series has explored family issues, faith, death and loss, poverty, racism, addiction and recovery, clinical depression, and, of course, politics. Today's story continues the tradition of exploring the world around us as the times impact our nation in our annual observance and celebration of the Christmas holiday. This reading also continues another tradition dating back now 20 years. This is the 20th benefit reading to support local food shelves, and I'm delighted to be working for the 10th consecutive year with the Hallie Q Brown. More about that after the story. Now, over the years, I've read this story as a solo reader. In other years, I've been joined by a cast of characters who assume character roles. This year, I'll be reading solo. And I want to say one thing. We all know that it's been a tumultuous year, and I set out in the summer when I started thinking about this, the story ideas going around and around in my head as I pushed the lawnmower around and around the backyard. And I wanted to write a happy story because I figured we had enough of this stuff. Unfortunately, there was an image that I could not unsee, and it would not leave my head, and so the story ended up being a battle between what I couldn't unsee and the desire to find happiness in the holiday season. So with that, we are ready to begin. I hope you enjoy Christmas Longings. Sitting at the kitchen table, Matthew Bartholomew clicked off his phone, distressed by what he had just read. Here it was the day before Thanksgiving, and he had yet to find a shred of holiday spirit. He felt uneasy, restless. Nothing seemed to help, not even the inviting aroma of Deirdre's apple pies baking in the oven. The dreaded image that had haunted him since August flashed into his mind, and a sudden longing gripped him. He stood up abruptly and grabbed his coat. "Going somewhere?" his wife asked. "Just out to the Christmas shed. I need a dose of Christmas medicine." The Christmas shed stood in the backyard of the Bartholomew family home. Matt unlocked the door, stepped inside, and switched on the lights. The room was packed with life-size, lifelike crushed figures that for decades had graced the front yard each holiday season. Matt's late father, John Bartholomew, had built a wooden stable and created the figures of Mary, Joseph, and the Christ child in 1956, the year Matt, eldest of 8 children, was born. In addition to the Holy Family, the menagerie included a cow and donkey, shepherds and their flock, the 3 wise men and their camels, and a host of heavenly angels. Upon his father's passing in 1998, Matt had purchased the family home from the estate. He had displayed the figures each holiday season ever since. On the day after Thanksgiving, while others went Christmas shopping, Matt would use his father's diagram to position the figures in the front yard and place the footlights and spotlights. He would set out barrels to collect food donations for the open cupboard food shelf operated by his old friend, Handyman. By tradition, next Saturday afternoon, the Bartholomew clan would gather here at the family home for a potluck, the one time a year when the entire family got together. At sunset, the crest lights would be turned on for the first time. Normally, opening this door and seeing the beloved figures filled him with holiday spirit. Today, however, the dreaded image that he could not unsee persisted. Endless, narrow depressions in the green fields of Belgium, the remains of the opposing World War I trenches, separated by an unoccupied strip of land called No Man's Land. Here at home, the election was over, the results final, but the country remained sharply divided, squared off in opposing trenches, just like the trenches that stretched across the Belgium landscape. The troubling image of the trenches was a legacy of a summer trip he and Deidre had taken. To celebrate their 30th wedding anniversary, Deidre had suggested they attend the 2024 Olympics in Paris to cheer for local gymnast Suni Lee. They had combined the trip to Paris with a visit to the beaches of Normandy, where the Allied troops had landed on D-Day in 1944. From there, they had made the short trip to Ypres, Belgium, the site of the Christmas truce of 1914. One of the miracles of Christmas, the truce had been a spontaneous pause in the Great War, which was already at stalemate. On Christmas Eve, soldiers hunkered down in their trenches, issued the usual insults, taunts, and catcalls across no man's land. But German and British soldiers alike felt weary from months of fighting and longed to be home with their loved ones. According to accounts, on the German side of no man's land, burning candles and small Christmas trees began to appear on the parapets atop the trenches. The weary soldiers sang, their melancholy voices drifting across no man's land to the ears of the enemy. To the British soldiers in the opposing trenches, the words were strange, but the melody was very familiar. Silent Night. As if in answer, they sang the familiar hymn in English, their voices blending with those of their enemy. The catcalls, insults, and taunts subsided, replaced by shouts of howdy greeting. From both sides, weary soldiers climbed over the parapets and ventured into no man's land. There they exchanged impromptu gifts of cigarettes, food, and alcohol. Along the Western Front, more and more soldiers left the trenches. At one location, even an informal soccer match began. Details of soldiers retrieved the bodies of their fallen comrades for burial. The truce had lasted through Christmas Day, longer in some places along the Western Front, and then, under orders, the fighting began again. Here at home, no one was shooting at him, but like many others, Matt felt like the country was under siege, each side hunkered down in their ideological trenches, pointing fingers of blame, hurling insults and taunts at each other. There seemed to be no end in sight. Among those hunkered down in the trenches on the other side was Matt's brother, Tim, his wife, Linda, their daughter, Juliana, her husband, and their family. He had invited Tim and Linda over several times, but they were always busy, suggesting a next time that never came. The two families were on the most abbreviated of speaking terms, their communication reduced to graduation announcements or birthday card bearing just a signature. Matt's siblings all said they had faced a similar situation. No one knew what to do about it, and there the matter stood. He wished it wasn't so. As he reached for the light switch, Matt noticed Hope's purple stocking cap hanging on a nail driven into the wall. Hope had placed the cap on Mary's head back in 2016, the year he'd conceived the crazy idea of having the crash figures journey from various parts of the city to his front yard during the month of December. People had followed Mary and Joseph's journey on social media. One night, a video appeared of Hope, age 6, removing her stocking cap to reveal her bald head. She gently placed her cap on Mary's head to keep her warm. A cancer patient, Hope had become an instant social media star, a beacon of hope. The stocking cap had remained on Mary's head for the remainder of her journey to the Bartholomew front yard. Hope had never returned to reclaim her cap, but he'd kept it just in case. Whatever had become of Hope, Matt wondered as he locked the shed door. Come to think of it, whatever became of Hope in general? Back in the kitchen, 2 apple pies were cooling on the counter. From the ceiling, as speakers, the honeyed voice of Andy Williams was proclaiming it's the most wonderful time of the year. In the living room, boxes of Christmas decorations were stacked on the coffee table. Deidre was halfway downstairs, carrying the box containing the artificial Christmas tree purchased last year. She set the box down in front of the picture window. "Ah, you're back. I decided to decorate the house for the potluck on Saturday. You give me a hand?" "Sure. Just so you know, these will be part of the decor." Deidre handed him a white cardboard poster. In large black letters were the words "Talking Politics," surrounded by a red circle with a diagonal line drawn through the words. "There's one on the front door and one in every room," she said. That's fine with me." Matt handed the poster back to her. "After all, it is the holiday season." Whatever. He slumped into one of the overstuffed chairs. "You're sure a gloomy Gus today." "I'm sorry. I'm still waiting for my Christmas medicine to take effect. I keep seeing those opposing trenches we saw last summer in the back of my mind. I can't decide. Do I follow the news and get depressed about how divided the country is, or should I just skip the news altogether and be uninformed?" Tough decision. "Well, you seem to be in a festive mood," Matt observed, pointing to the stack of boxes. "Oh, Christmas is supposed to be a time of celebration. You know, like the Bible says, peace on earth, goodwill to all. That's the approach I'm taking this year, the circumstances notwithstanding. So business as usual, in other words?" "I didn't say it was easy. I've been struggling between being depressed about the circumstances, the trenches, as you put it, or enthusiastically embracing the holiday. Embracing the holiday won. So, while you're setting up the creche on Friday, I'm going Christmas shopping. Anyone who invites me to a Christmas party this year, I'm going." Anyone who invites me to a Christmas party this year, I'm going. I long to go Christmas shopping. I long to bake Christmas cookies, and get used to Christmas music all day. And I long for the kids to come home. And when they do come home, we'll hang our special ornaments and exchange Secret Santa gifts like we always do. I'm planning a special dinner on Christmas Eve. We'll go to the Christmas Eve services and see what's in our stockings on Christmas morning and open our presents. At the mention of stockings, Matt glanced at the fireplace. Under the mantel were 8 hooks. In his mind, a picture suddenly formed of 8 stockings hanging in a row according to age, starting with his own on the left, followed by the stockings of Carol, Tim, Tom, Mary, Margaret, and the twins, Jim and Joe. Well, we probably won't need these posters, he said. Tim and his family have skipped the potluck for the last 2 years. Did you invite them? Well, not specifically, Matt confessed. It's a tradition. I mean, everyone in the family just simply marks the Saturday after Thanksgiving on their calendars. Everyone just comes. Well, maybe you should invite them. Well, it won't do any good. He's too stubborn. Well, you never know unless you try. Matt pulled out his phone and typed a text. Are you all coming to the family potluck on Saturday? Hope so. The reply came seconds later. Have other plans. He showed the text to Deidre. Before he could pocket his phone, another text arrived. Don't need any political lectures. It felt like a taunt hurled across no man's land. Nor do we, Matt typed. He pushed the send button and then regretted it. At mid-afternoon on Saturday after Thanksgiving, members of the extended Bartholomew family began to arrive. Matt stood inside the front door and directed traffic. The crockpots, covered dishes, and carrying bags were to be dropped off in the kitchen. Coats were to be piled on the bed in the master bedroom upstairs. Beverages were in the coolers in the kitchen. Help yourself. The air vibrated with holiday energy. In deference to Deidre's posters, Matt didn't hear any mention of politics in the snatches of conversation. Listening to the buzz of voices punctuated by bursts of laughter, he felt his spirits rising. Deidre was all smiles. He welcomed everyone, offered grace, and declared it was time to eat. Deidre had organized the food into a buffet line. Each guest made their selections from the long line of breads, salads, entrees, side dishes, hot dishes, and desserts. The cousins and their families gathered in groups at the kitchen and dining room tables. The Bartholomew siblings and their spouses took seats in the living room, their plates resting in their laps. Oh, I'm sure glad one of Carol's girls brought her mother Swedish meatballs, Margaret said. It wouldn't be the potluck without Carol's meatballs. Oh, I still miss her. What's it been, 10 years since she passed? The mention of her passing unleashed a passel of Carol's stories. The year she made pillowcases for everyone with their names embroidered on the flap, pink for the girls, blue for the boys. How, after their mother had died, she made a mincemeat pie every Christmas for their father. Sitting next to the fireplace, Tom reached out and touched Carol's hook under the mantel. Yeah, I can't remember when these hooks weren't here. As long as I'm here, those hooks are staying put, Matt said. The 4 of us, we still hang our stockings on the middle 4 hooks. Anyone remember all of us creeping downstairs early one morning and catching Santa Claus filling our stockings? Tom asked. Instead of a pipe, he was smoking a smelly cigar, just like Mr. Morris across the street. The smoke turned the air blue. Oh, how I long for the good old days, Mary lamented. Well, not all of them were good, Matt reminded her. Remember the Christmas without cash? Oh, that was 1970, Margaret said. The year the fire destroyed Dad's insurance office. We all got underwear, socks, and tennis shoes wrapped up in Christmas paper. Oh, but Mom and Dad still took us all out to eat on Christmas Eve, Mary recalled. If you can call White Castle going out to eat, Tom broke in. Laughter erupted. Wasn't that the year we got the clicker? Jim asked. The clicker, Joe echoed. The stupidest toy ever made. Heads nodded in agreement. Tim was the only one who could ever make the clicker operate, Jim added. At the mention of Tim's name, the room fell silent. Did I say something wrong? Jim asked. So, has anybody talked to Tim lately? Tom asked, acknowledging the elephant in the room. I haven't. Margaret pointed at the poster above the mantel. No talking politics, Tom. I'm not talking about politics, Mark. I'm talking about our family. He is our brother, after all. Well, Matt, did you even invite him? Margaret asked. I did. He had other plans. He left out the part about exchanging texts. He glanced at Deidre and saw a frown creasing her face. The last time I talked to him, he said the country was under siege, Joe said. And every time I talk to him, I get a lecture, a laundry list of what's wrong with the country. I don't know where he comes up with some of the stuff he says. Oh, you tell me, Tom said. You know, we grew up in the same house, slept in the same room upstairs. You know how he is. We've always sparred about the issues. I always thought it was a philosophical discussion, that it was all in fun. At least it was for me. He did too. At least he used to. Our differences never really mattered. And something changed. I realized it wasn't fun anymore. It had turned personal. For both of us. I backed off, and so did he. So, Jim asked, has he abandoned us, or have we abandoned him? What's the difference? Joe asked. Well, I think we should all be able to get along, Mary declared. Why does it have to be him, Tom? Couldn't we all, I don't know, bend a little bit to get along? Tim doesn't bend, Joe said. It's up to us. Well, how far are you willing to bend? Tom demanded. You keep bending and bending. Finally, you reach a point where your core values are ready to crack. You either break or you stop bending. I stop bending. Well, you sound just like him, Mary cried. She wiped tears from her eyes. You always judge people so. No wonder he doesn't want to talk to you. Well, when was the last time you talked to him, Mary? Tom asked. Mary's answer was silence. Matt felt the festive mood slipping away. He noticed that Deidre had disappeared. It's getting dark, he said. I think we should all put our coats on and go outside for the lighting ceremony. Leave it to Tim to ruin a family gathering, Tom said, even when he's not here. That evening, Matt went outside at bedtime to tuck in the crutch figures for the night. He checked each figure to make sure it remained securely staked against the wind. He placed the food donation barrels at the end of the driveway, saying a silent prayer that visitors would be generous this year. In the days to come, he would take each day's donations to the open cupboard. He stood on the boulevard sidewalk to view the scene as a visitor. Through the years, how many times had he stood here in troubled times to draw inspiration and hope from these figures? With Mary and Tom squared off against one another, the potluck had ended on a sour note. Shortly after he had switched on the lights, people had gone back inside, gathered up their dishes, and called it a night. He had issued an apology to Deidre, who shrugged an answer. Now, as he stood here, longing for inspiration, he felt that Mary and Tom were both right. Why couldn't they all bend a little to get along with the other side? But, like Tom had said, how far can one bend before one's core values are threatened? At what point, he wondered, did upholding one's core values turn into simple stubbornness? What to do? He turned to the wise men. My wise friends, he said, what is the answer? The wise men remained silent. Matt turned and walked up the driveway. He turned off the creche lights, pushed the button that sent the garage door rattling down, and then followed the sidewalk around to the front door, where he paused to remove the poster. True to her word, Deidre embraced the holiday with determined enthusiasm. Her no politics poster remained above the mantel, Christmas music played endlessly on the stereo. She baked Christmas cookies by the dozen, followed by an assortment of candies. After they attended a Christmas carol at the Guthrie, she searched online for a Christmas pudding recipe like Mrs. Cratchit had prepared for the family feast. She wrote personal notes in every Christmas card she addressed. And she FaceTimed with Allison and Christopher to make plans for activities while they were home. Christmas presents began to appear under the tree. Matt envied her industriousness. He put off his own Christmas shopping. When the others asked him what he wanted for Christmas, he had no answer, knowing that what he truly longed for could not be purchased online or in a store. There was no end in sight to the division that gripped the country. Every day after lunch, he transferred food donations into the back of his SUV and drove them to the open cupboard. He usually spent the afternoons stocking Christmas shelves and helping clients with their selections. In the evening, after dinner, he often joined Deidre in the den to watch a Christmas movie on the Hallmark Channel. He could hardly tell one movie from another. "Why do we keep watching these?" Matt asked one night. "They all have the same format." "Because they all have a happy ending." "Happy endings are in short supply," he agreed. "No happy ending in sight to this political mess anyway. I keep hoping our leaders will negotiate a truce, but all you hear from them is taunts and insults hurled at the other side." "It was the soldiers who initiated the truce back in 1914, Deirdre reminded him, not their leaders. What made the soldiers venture out of their trenches that long ago Christmas?" "Their longings overpowered their fear," Matt said. "Stepping out was an act of faith that the enemy, feeling the same longings, wouldn't open fire." She laid her hand on top of his. "Tell me, what would it take for you to talk to your brother?" Caught short, he struggled to answer. After all, Tim did not bend. "I'd have to think about that," he stammered. "A sign of some kind?" The question gnawed at him the rest of the evening. At bedtime, when he tucked in the creche figures, he turned to the wise man. "What's keeping me in the trenches besides my own stubbornness?" The wise man remained silent. One afternoon, he was transferring food from the barrels into his SUV. A young voice called out to him, "Hello?" On the boulevard sidewalk stood a man, a woman, and a teenaged girl bundled against the cold. The girl stepped forward. "I'm Hope," she said. "The bald girl? These are my parents." "I remember," Matt said. "It's been a long time. You've grown up." "We moved shortly after that Christmas," her father explained. "I accepted a job transfer to Rochester so we could be nearer the clinic where Hope was being treated. But we've never forgotten how excited she was to follow Mary and Joseph on their journey. The doctors told us much later that her recovery was a miracle. They never expected Hope to survive. We've always believed that her faith in Mary and Joseph saved her." "I was 6, Hope explained. "To me, Mary and Joseph were alive." And some photos from that year popped up today on a Facebook memory, her mother said. Hope said she wanted to see Mary and Joseph again. All of the figures, Hope added. Everything is so unsettled these days, her mother continued. We decided spur of the moment to drive up. "Well, I'm glad you did," Matt said. "By the way, I have something that belongs to you. Wait here." He hurried to the Christmas shed, retrieved the purple stocking cap from its hook, and returned to the front yard. "Hope, you put this on Mary's head to help her keep warm," he said. "I've saved it for you." "Oh my," the mother said, "I don't believe you've kept that all these years." "I remember this hat," Hope said. "Thank you." Would you like to come in?" Matt asked. "No, we need to get home," the father said apologetically. "We only drove up because Hope longed to see Mary and Joseph again. It was so nice to see you, though. They wished each other Merry Christmas. Matt watched them leave and return to his work. So, hope was alive and well. He suddenly felt like he had been visited by an angel to remind him that Christmas was a time for miracles, a time when things that weren't supposed to happen, happened. As he worked, he nursed a hope that hope in general was also alive and well. During the week before Christmas, Matt left the crush lights on all night. In the wee hours of nights he couldn't sleep, he often sat by the bedroom window and looked down into the front yard. From his vantage point, he could see the shepherds and the wise men facing the stable in worship, their faces lit by the footlights. On the night before Christmas Eve, as he sat at the window, a crew cab pickup truck drove very slowly down Pinehurst Avenue. At the end of the block, the pickup made a U-turn and stopped across the street in front of the house. After a few moments, the driver's door opened and a man stepped out. The man opened the pickup's back door and lifted out 2 brown grocery bags by their handles. His posture and movements seemed familiar as he crossed the street, bags in hand. When he passed under the boulevard streetlight, Matt recognized the man as his brother. He felt his heartbeat quicken. He smothered an outcry. He pressed his hands against the cold window glass. Tim carried the bags to the end of the driveway. He raised the lid of one of the barrels, carefully lowered the bags into it, and closed the lid. Slowly, he walked along the boulevard sidewalk, stopping to gaze at the shepherds and their flock. He took in the host of heavenly angels, then continued walking, stopping at the front walkway to study the Holy Family. His gaze shifted toward the wise men and their camels. He rested his gloved hands on the top rail of the split rail fence and stared ahead intently. He seemed to be looking past the crushed figures at the house itself. After a long moment, he folded his hands and briefly bowed his head. Stunned, just as Matt stood up to hurry downstairs, his brother turned away from the house and headed toward the street. At the curb, he looked back into the yard. Halfway across the street, he stopped and pulled his phone from his pocket and snapped several pictures. Then he slid behind the wheel of the pickup and drove away. Stunned by what he had witnessed, Matt dressed and went downstairs. He pulled on his coat and slipped outside. He walked to the same spot where his brother had stood. He studied the crushed figures and the house itself. What had drawn Tim, the man who did not bend, to his childhood home, bags in hand, in the wee hours of the night? Had he been overcome by a sense of longing and obeyed his heart? Like the soldiers so long ago, he seemed to have placed the equivalent of a candle or a little Christmas tree on the parapet of his trench. Matt rested his hands on the fence rail. He felt his own heart soften in a rush of warmth toward his brother. What to do in return? What had the soldiers done so long ago after seeing candles and little Christmas trees appear on the parapets across no man's land? Their taunts and catcalls had given way to their own longings, and they called out Christmas greetings to those on the other side. The answer to his question seemed clear. On Christmas Eve, he had to call his brother and wish him a Merry Christmas. It was not a solution, just a small step. For the first time in the holiday season, Matt felt the Christmas medicine taking effect. Christmas was a time for miracles, a time for hope. Maybe Tim's visit was just one of many such candles that would appear, lights that expressed a deep longing that would somehow awaken the longings of those on the other side of no man's land. And maybe, just maybe, People on both sides, longing for something they could not put into words, would venture out of their ideological trenches to meet in no man's land and offer each other small gifts. In the morning, he would share the hopeful news with Deidre. He would call Tom, Mary, Margaret, Joe, and Jim and urge each one of them to light a candle or place a small Christmas tree on their parapets where it could be seen by all. Thank you. Now, if it wasn't obvious, that's a very difficult story to read because we have a divided political family in my household. Now it's time to turn our attention to the cause. Benny mentioned that today's reading supported a great cause, and let's turn our attention in that direction. In 2004, I did my first benefit reading for hunger relief. Counting that year, this is the 21st year, actually, I've done a reading to support your food shelves. I mentioned the two collections of Bartholomew Christmas stories earlier. 100% of the revenue from the book sales plus cash donations over the course of 20 years has contributed more than $90,000 in food to food shelves. This year, we've set a big goal. We want to hit the $100,000 mark all the way through. And if we do that, we'll be at the $50,000 mark roughly for Hallie Q. Benny shared information about the ever-growing food insecurity in Minnesota and the demands that insecurity places on the Hallie Q. Brown food shelf. It's now time for you to go to work. Today, there are 3 ways that you can support Hallie's food shelf. Number 1, checks for any amount can be written today, payable to the Hallie Q. Brown Community Center food shelf and turned in to me. You can also mail them to me. If you didn't bring your checkbook, you can donate by credit card this afternoon. Just line up at the table, and hopefully we have a QR code out there that we can find for you that will take you to Hallie's website. And if you liked the story and want more, you can get Getting Ready for Christmas and the Christmas Promise books available, and 100% of those profits go to the Hallie Q. Brown Center. You can also go directly to Hallie's website and click on Donate and find ways to donate there. For those who are watching this program on SPNN's public access channels or YouTube channel, you can donate to the food shelf online at hallieqbrown.org. To access the virtual food drive, click on Donate. I think I didn't speak to Benny about this, but I think that the Christmas Promise could also be available at Hallie during the December. We'll work those details out to make sure. So, to coin a phrase that wraps things up, thank you all for coming. Thank you for supporting the Hallie Q. Brown food shelf this Christmas. Give yourselves a time to fulfill your longings. Put up a small candle or a Christmas tree on your ideological parapet. Step out into no man's land and offer a small gift. Thank you very much.